Here's some things to think about when designing for a book cover. If you've ever gone and shopped for a book, you'll know that the first thing that usually grabs your attention is the cover itself. So the cover tends to be the most important thing as far as the design of the book. Later on, we'll get into the inside pages, but for now, we'll just talk mainly on covers. Whether you're shopping in a store or even shopping online, the book cover is what captures your attention. So the first role of a book cover is to be promotional. It should be the kind of thing that can draw you over and make you want to purchase or want to know more about what the book is about. The second thing that book cover design does is it gives an idea of what the book itself is about. What's the message? If it's a nonfiction or a fiction, the book cover should give you a general idea of what to expect once you start reading. However, pay close attention that you don't give away too much detail. You want to have kind of a sense of mystery about your book cover design. If you were to look at both of these covers, could you understand what the book is about? Take the one on the left, The Art of Immersion. If all you knew about this book was the title of it, well, is that a fiction or a nonfiction? If you look at the artwork that they chose, it's very, very stylistic. Does that give you any more clue about what it's about? It's only when we read the subtitle, How the Digital Generation is Remaking Hollywood, Madison Avenue, and the Way We Tell Stories, then I get a better understanding of what the book may be about. But in this case, hey, it's very abstracted as far as what this academic style of book would be. Versus if I look at the one on the right, Wall Street, America's Dream. In this one, I can quickly tell, hey, this is going to be about Wall Street. I've got an image of Wall Street. I've got an image of the American flag upside down, and I've got the text very easily, very quickly telling me that this is about Wall Street. So when you design your book covers, be thinking about what's appropriate. Do you want to give away a lot of what the book is about, or do you want it to be more direct? There really are no rules as far as what has to be on the cover. There are some general guidelines, but again, it's up to you to work with the author or the publisher to create a good visual representation for the book. The first purpose needs to be able to market it, so it needs to be something that's going to capture people's attention. It can have a lot of text, or it can have a lot of images, and sometimes you can combine both of those together. To come up with a visual concept for a cover, there are some elements that you do need to be aware of. For most design covers, they have 4 required components. There has to be a book title, and sometimes a subtitle. There needs to be an edition, so if it's the first book or the second or third book. The author's name often appears on it, and any other kind of elements. And other elements are things like if a magazine gives it praise, or if a good book reviewer gives it a good book review. Sometimes you'll put those either on the front or the back of the cover. Other elements can also be maybe a small, brief biography of the author itself. But be aware of what needs to go on the page and where you'll place it. What are you going to emphasize? What are you going to de-emphasize? If you look at these 2 book designs, the one on the left is obviously emphasizing the title of the book. And all that she has is her name at the bottom of it for the author. The title is the most dominant. That would be the Papa Bear. And the name would be Mama Bear or even Baby Bear. It's much, much smaller. The one on the right, however, has a lot of information on it. At the very top, it's got a thing of praise from Salon magazine. The most dominant thing on here, besides the image, is Smothered in Hugs, and also Dennis Cooper. He's chosen to give his name just as much weight as the title of the book. And the subtitle is even less weighty. Sometimes you may want to have more of a text-heavy type cover, and sometimes you may want to have more of an image-heavy kind of cover. Both of these are totally acceptable. The one on the left is very heavy in text. The image is blurred out and in the background. Versus the one on the right, the intricacies of all the illustration and even the 2 images of the cow and the pig, those stand out, and they're just as much equal weight as the text that's on the page of this book cover. There is an integration between the type that you use and the images. The images need to cooperate with the type and needs to support what the book is about. So as you choose images and as you work with type, make sure it doesn't conflict with the overall message that you're working with. There are 4 basic routines that you can go through when creating a book type cover. It can be all type, it can be type driven, it can be image driven, or have a visual verbal synergy. Here's some examples of each. So these are examples of all type, and as you can see, all it has is just letters, just words on there. They have the hierarchy is usually based on the size of the type or even the placement of the type. Sometimes it can be very large, very small, depending on how you want things to be read. If it's both visual and verbal, well, in this case, there's a lot of imagery that goes along with this as well. Think of type as being the visuals. It can almost become the pictures that you're working with. Here's visual and verbal. In this case, the visuals are standing out a lot more than the type. The type has almost become secondary. The one on the left, I'm picking up on the person's face, and I can see the face first before I start reading the title or even before I start reading the author. The same is especially true for the one on the right. I'm picking up on the visuals first. Then later on, as I'm drawn into it, I read the kiss and I read the author's name. If it has a visual and verbal symmetry, in this case, the size and the emphasis of the images is just as good as the text that's in front of it. In this case, it's both drawn off hand-lettered text and drawn off hand-created images for the covers. The final thing to consider is designing for a series of books. Whenever you design for a series, you want to make sure that each book in the series has corresponding visual elements. You don't want them to look too different, but you still want them to have their own individuality. So things like the author's name, the title of the book, and other things need to be placed in visually similar locations on the cover. You can use a template for the individual covers and simply swap out the visuals or other information from here. So for instance, this is for the Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire series. Notice how some of the elements are exactly the same on every book. All they've changed up is the coloring and the imagery that they've put in the center of it. Here's the same for the Harry Potter series. They've changed up the imagery a lot, and even the colors are changed up a lot, but they've kept the Harry Potter logo exactly the same. Same way for J.R.R. Tolkien's Fellowship of the Ring series. Each one has a different image, but each one also has the same placement of the title and same treatment for the author.